Okay guys, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to our YouTube channel. In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to dynamically generate the forms in Django by using Jquery. So, actually, in this tutorial, we'll have three main parts. The part number one will be creating the Django view, which renders an HTML page. Part number two will be creating an HTML page. Then part number three will be creating Jquery source code for dynamically adding the forms. But before we start by creating the Django view, let me show you the demonstration. So on the front of your computer screen, this is how your HTML page will look like at the end of this session. So user will be able to add multiple forms by clicking on Add Form button. User will add many forms as he wants. Okay. But not only that, user will be able to delete the form. Okay. So this is what you should expect at the end of this tutorial. So we are going to start. I'm using Visual Studio Code, and here I'm going to create the Django view for rendering HTML page. I'm using already created the Django application, so I won't cover from the scratch how to create a Django project and how to create the Django application. So the name of my Django project is Django Ajax, and the name of my application is core. So I open up the core, which is my application. Then I'm going to views file of core application. Then after, I should be able to create the Django view for rendering HTML page. So the name of the Django view is take, and it takes one parameter, which is a request. Then the view should be able to return HTML page to the user. And the name of HTML is take.html. After creating a Django view, I'm going to Ctrl S so as the changes made in views.py of core application should be saved. Then after, I'm going to create a take.html in core application. Okay, so I'm going to open up. This is template of core application. Then I should be able to click and create a new file and name it as take.html. Okay, after that, I'm going to create the HTML source code inside take.html. So here I'm going to shift from using Visual Studio Code. I'm going to use Sublime Text Editor. So this is my project, then core, templates, core. Then this is take.html. I open it up. Okay. Then after, I'm going to open up moretech.html. So here I'll copy everything from moretech.html, then paste it inside tech.html. Okay. Then after, let me remove this. Okay. So actually this is the tech.html. After creating the Django view and the HTML page, we need to map the Django view to the URL con by adding the name of the Django view in urls.py of core application. So here I can just copy this and paste it here. Then after, I can make some few changes. So the name of view is tech, the path is tech, then I Ctrl S to save the changes. Then after, I go to the browser and I write tech. Okay, now you can see here there is heading generating dynamical form in the Django. This means we should be able to generate multiple forms in the Django by using Jquery. So here, as I showed you on the demo, that once user write the path of this page, should be able to see only one button. Okay, so let me come here. So here, as you can see, this is div row, and inside the row I have partitioned the HTML page into equal 3 parts, okay, with a size of col SM4. Okay, so here what I can do, I want to create a HTML form. So let me write form. I'll give this form ID, which is test form. Okay, then I can say that the method of this form is post. Then after, I won't forget to add the CSRF token, which is key for preventing the form against the CSRF attack. Okay, then after, inside the form, I'm going to create a div. Okay, so the class of this div will be col SM12. Col SM12. Call MD12 and call LG12. Okay, then after, inside of this div, I'm going to create another div with ID of input wrapper. So inside this div called the input wrapper, this is actually a piece of code where the dynamically generated form will be added inside. Okay, after that, I'm going to create 2 buttons. The first button is for saving the form, and another button is for adding the form. So I start by creating the save button. So button, the ID of button is button save. Save bit n, save button. Then the class of this button should be button success. Okay. After creating the save button, another button I'm going to create is the add form button. To make this task simple, I would like to copy the save form button and paste it below the save button. Then I'll make the changes to the name of button and the ID of button. So this will be add form. Okay. And the ID of button will be add button. So let me Ctrl S to save the changes. Then go to the browser and refresh. Okay, you can see we are able to see the add button, but we cannot see we are able to see the add form, but we are not able to see the save button. Okay, let me do something here. I think there is something wrong. So this should be cross primal. Okay, button success and the button primal. So this is the form. I'd like to delete this. Let me Ctrl S to save the changes, then get back to the browser. Okay, once I refresh, I can only see the add form button. So we have successfully created an HTML page and the Django view. So I would like to move to the Jquery Code by creating another HTML page called the techie_js.html. So this is HTML page which will store all Jquery source code which will be executed in tech.html. Here you can see there are two files. There is tech.html and there is tech_js.html. So inside the tech_js.html will store all Jquery source code and will include this file inside the tech.html as follows. So here we have included the tech_js.html. Okay, and here you can see these are the links of Jquery, and here the link of Bootstrap, as I'm using Bootstrap 4. So you can opt to link the Jquery and the Bootstrap either directly from online or directly from your local computer. So let me refresh the HTML page. You can see here there is a save button, okay, which should have a button success, and this is add form. So let me check here to see what is not correct. Okay, so this is button success. Okay, let me try out to put button info. Okay, all right, so let me open up the tech_js.html and I start to code in Jquery. So actually this is the tech_js. Okay, so here we are going to write everything in Jquery to be executed in tech.html. So document.read function, this ensures that once the HTML page is successfully loaded, it is when the Jquery and the JavaScript source code will be included. So nothing will execute in HTML or JavaScript before the HTML page or HTML document is full loaded. So once the HTML page is already loaded, then we can do our Jquery. We can't do anything on page which is not loaded. That's why we are checking if the page is ready. So the first thing I'm going to do is to hide the save button. Okay, so this can be done by selecting the HTML So once the form has successfully loaded, we need to hide the save button. Okay, once I refresh here, you cannot see the save button. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to declare the variable x, which will help us to increment and decrement the form. Then after, I'm going to implement I'm going to handle the event of add button. So once the add form button is clicked, then the Jquery should dynamically add the form randomly. So here I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to select the add button. So add button dot click, then function. So here I'm going to prevent the form to reload, so I'm going to write prevent default. Then inside the function I'm going to pass e. Okay, so here let me write the message to the browser to make sure that we have already handled the button. Okay, so here I can say console.log bracket, then button add form clicked. So once I go to the browser, I'm using Google Chrome. Okay, I would like to right click and select inspect form. And here, as you can see, I'm on the section of console. Okay, so here it should be click. Let me Ctrl S, then reload my HTML page. Once I click add form like this, you should see the message button form clicked. Once I click once again, you can see two button form clicked. So after detecting the add form button in jQuery is a starting point of handling the event of the button. So let me get back here, and I'm going to write the function, okay, for dynamically adding the form. But before I do that, I would like to design the form here. Okay, so this is the form. No worry, I'm going to create another form on top of my test form, but this form will be deleted. We are just using it to design the form. So here I can design my form. I want the form to have actual 3 input fields. Okay, so the first input field will be the first name. So this is our first input. Okay, then after creating this first name input, I would like to copy it and paste it underneath and make it as input field for the last name. Here I'll tell the user that enter the last name. After that, I'm going to create the last HTML input, which is text field. So what I can do here, I can say your opinion. And this is not the text input but the text area. So I'll delete this. The class of text area should be form control, and the rows should be 3. Then let me Ctrl S to save the changes. Once I go on the browser and refresh, I can see the form design. It has first name, last name, and the opinion. Okay. But to make this more meaningful, you can customize this input field with your own input field. Maybe this can be the first name, last name, course name, and the score of course accordingly to your use. But for this case, we'll use the first name, last name, and opinion input field. So after designing this HTML page on HTML, it's now a time to shift this HTML form to Jquery. So let me close this. Okay. Then I can copy everything from here up to here. Okay, but before doing that, let me add the delete form button. So here I'm creating another div. This will be the form group. Okay, so this is form group. Then inside I'll create another div. So this div will have the class of call sm10. Will have the class of call sm10. Then after, I'll create my button inside this div. The class of my button will be button danger, because we usually use the red color for deleting event. So let me go back on the browser, then refresh. You can see here there is a delete form, but here there is add form. Okay. So let me copy everything, as I told you that here what is actual being done is designing the form. So I'm going to copy everything inside this form and cut it. and totally removing the form. So here I'm going to create the function called the append row, which will be appending the input wrapper div and add another form requested by a user. So this is the append function. Okay, so I'll select the input wrapper div I want to append. Okay, and I will use the append function in Jquery. Okay, then after I'll paste the HTML code inside of here. So it should look like this. So this is how it looks like. So we should add the single quote on each line. Okay, so to make sure everything is texty or is a string in another way. Okay, so we add every line the single quote at the beginning and at the end. So let me do this very fast to make sure we save the time, as I don't like the session to be too long. So now we are done with this. Okay, so after making sure that we have added the single quote, the next thing we are going to do here is to add the ID. Okay, so here what I can do is I can say ID is equal to I want to add the ID of X. Okay, so it should be something like this. No, it should be something like okay, let me just copy this. So it should be like this. So let's add the ID of X on each line. So after that, let me add the plus sign. As I told you that everything in append function in Jquery should be a string. So here what we are doing is like concatenating the string and make it one long string. Let me Ctrl S to save the changes. It looks very weird, but this is actually the functionality and we need to eat this frog. Okay. So let me get back in my add button event handler. Okay, so inside in my add button, I would like to call the append function. Okay, so here I can say append row. Okay, then I need to increment the x variable. As I told you, this is a variable we are using for dynamically adding the form as requested by user. Then after, I will select the save button and hide and show it. Okay, let me Ctrl S to save the changes. Then let me go back on our browser. Okay, so let me refresh here. Let me inspect it to see if there is any error. I see there is no error. So let me click the add form button. You can see I'm able to add the button. I'm able to dynamically add the form. So this is actually the functionality on how you can dynamically add the form. So let me implement the delete form functionality. Okay. So here, let me create here. As you can see, there is this delete button form. So we are going to handle the event on this button. Okay. So what I can do here, I'm going to track this. Okay, input wrapper, dot on click, dot on a click, then comma. I want to track the delete button, the cross delete button. Then after, I'm going to write a function here. So I'm going to write a function, but let me pass e variable inside the function, and here I'll use it to prevent the reloading of a form. Okay, then after, let me declare the variable var id is equal to e dot current target id. Dot id. Okay, then after, let me put a bracket, then div id plus, okay, should be something like this, dot remove. This will actually remove the form, and it should decrement. So if x is equal to 0, then we need to hide the save button. Let me Ctrl S to save the changes. Then let me get back on the browser and refresh. Cancel. Okay, I can see there is something wrong here. Okay, let me right click and click syntax error on line. Okay, it seems there is something wrong. Let me see. I think there are something wrong here. Let me check out the main source code file. I think everything is okay. But why I get the error? Save button. Okay. So div id dot remove e dot current target dot id. Okay. So let me copy this and try out to compare here, just to see what is wrong. Okay, so let me make the comparison of one line by another to note if there is an error. Okay, let me try out to remove this. Ctrl S to save the changes. Then let me try out to refresh. Oh, so there is something wrong. Let me Ctrl Z. So here it was input wrapper.click delete button function e.prevent default val id is equal to e dot current target dot id. So here it was div id is equal to plus id dot remove. So if x is equal to, I don't know what was wrong. Sometimes the Jquery syntax are very difficult and their errors are very difficult to debug. So let me try out to add the form and delete the form. So we are now actually able to add the form dynamically, and we are able to delete this form dynamically in the Django and Jquery. So actually this sums up the end of this session, where we have covered how we can dynamically generate forms, HTML forms, not the Django form set, by using Jquery. Actually, I make this as a promise for you. In the next session, we'll have another 2 session, how we can submit this form, single form, okay? How we can submit single form in the Django backend, and how we can submit multiple forms. So if user has created 3 forms or 4 forms, he should be able to submit. If user has 2 forms, he should also still be able to submit. And once user has 1 form, should be able to submit in the Django backend. So if you find out this video is useful for you, not forget to like and share it to your colleagues, because it might also be useful for them. But also, if you want to get the more updates or amazing video like this about the Django and Ajax, not forget to subscribe. But also, if you have another way to dynamically generate form in the Django apart from this I've shown here and the Django form set, you can better share it by commenting below, because so far in my Django experience of coding, I know only 2 methods to dynamically add the form in Django, which is number 1, by using Django and Jquery, number 2, by using Django built-in form set. So if you know another method, please share for us, and I will try out to check it. But not only that, what is your experience when it comes to multiple form? How do you go about it? Maybe user want to have dynamical form. Today user can need maybe 2 forms because he or she has 2 reports. Tomorrow he or she can need 5 forms because she or he has 5 reports. How do you go about it? What is your experience? I need all those comments, and I'll be reading them in my spare time. Thank you, and see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.